The girl was only 7 when her life changed forever. Before that, she had a small world that was filled with laughter and warmth, even though it was not rich. She remembered the days when her mother would braid her hair, tell her stories, and kiss her forehead before she went to sleep. But one winter morning, that warmth vanished. Her mother became sick and passed away, leaving a hole in her heart that no one could fill. Her father, heartbroken and weak, tried to continue life, but he soon remarried a woman who seemed kind at first. He wanted his daughter to be loved and cared for, but instead things became even harder at first. The girl hoped her stepmother would love her. She thought maybe now she would have a mother who would read her stories, make her favorite food, and take her to school with care. But it did not happen. Her stepmother was strict and cold. She never smiled at her, never asked how she was feeling, and never cared about her needs. Instead, she treated the girl like she was a burden, someone who caused trouble just by existing. Every little mistake was punished. Even small things like spilling water or being late to finish chores were met with harsh words. Sometimes, she would be sent to her room without food, or given the hardest work in the house while others rested, her father. Although he tried, was always busy with work or distracted by the new life he was building, he loved his daughter in his own way, but he could not see the depth of her suffering. The girl learned quickly that she could not rely on him for help. She began to hide her feelings, pretending to be okay while her heart hurt. She learned to be quiet, to stay out of trouble, and to survive each day. Her stepmother would often tell her that she was nothing, that she would never be anyone important. Those words were heavy, but the girl could not argue. She felt invisible, like she was living in a house, but not part of the family. School was not much better. Her stepmother did not care to send her proper clothes or books. She wore old, worn-out dresses that made her stand out in a cruel way. Other children noticed, and some teased her. She wanted to make friends, but she was shy and had learned not to trust people. Teachers sometimes tried to help, but they had their own work and could not always see the small girl who carried a heavy heart. So she sat quietly, listened, and kept her dreams locked deep inside, where no one could reach them. At home, chores were endless. From morning until night, she cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, and tended to the house. Her stepmother would watch carefully, criticizing every move. The smallest thing done wrong would result in a harsh scolding. The girl learned to move quickly, to work silently, and to never make mistakes. Sleep was short, and her little body often ached from the constant labor. Yet, she never gave up. Somehow, she believed that one day life would be different. She clung to that hope, even though it was faint. Like a small flame in the darkness, her father sometimes tried to comfort her, but his attempts were brief. He did not understand how much she suffered. The girl would sometimes run to her room and cry quietly, hiding her tears from everyone. She cried for the mother she lost, for the love she never received, and for the loneliness that had become her constant companion. Sometimes she wished she could disappear, to leave the house and the people who hurt her behind. But she was too young, too dependent, and too afraid to leave. She could only wait and endure. Despite the pain, she found small joys wherever she could. A bird outside the window, a warm cup of tea she managed to make herself, or the few kind words from a teacher who noticed her quiet intelligence. Those little moments reminded her that the world was not completely cruel, even if her home was. She learned to treasure small happiness and to keep hope alive. It was her secret strength, one that no one could take away no matter how hard they tried. The girl also loved to read. She borrowed books from the school library, reading under a small lamp at night after finishing all her chores. The stories took her to different worlds, 2 places where children were loved, valued, and free. She imagined herself in those stories, believing that maybe one day her life would be like the ones she read about. Those quiet nights with books were the only time she felt truly herself. The words on the pages were like a friend, whispering that she could survive, but she could be more than what her stepmother told her she was. As she grew older, the abuse did not lessen. In fact, it seemed to get worse. Her stepmother became jealous of any attention the girl received from her father or others. She would find ways to punish her, sometimes denying her meals, sometimes giving her endless work while the rest of the family rested. The girl learned to avoid attention, to keep her head down, and to smile when needed, even if her heart was breaking. She became skilled at hiding pain and putting on a brave face. People around her would see a quiet, obedient girl, but inside she carried a world of sorrow. Still, she was not broken. The girl had a quiet strength, a deep determination to survive. She knew that life had been unfair to her, but she refused to let it destroy her completely. She kept her dreams alive, even if only in her heart. She believed that one day, someone would see her for who she really was. Someone who would care, someone who would treat her with kindness. That belief was her light in the darkness, guiding her through each day. Her childhood was not filled with toys, laughter, or celebrations. Birthdays were ignored or forgotten. Holidays were chores and work. But the girl never gave up hope that things could be different. She imagined a life where she could be happy, loved, and valued. She imagined a life where she could smile without fear and wake up without pain. Those dreams kept her alive. Even in the darkest moments, the girl found ways to stay strong. She spoke gently to herself, reminding herself that she was not worthless, that she was capable, that she deserved love. No matter how cruel her stepmother was, no matter how indifferent her father seemed, she refused to believe that her life was over. She held on to her dignity, her quiet intelligence, and her inner courage. Those qualities would become her greatest strength in the years to come. The girl's story is one of survival, quiet courage, and hope in the face of constant pain. She was ignored and abused, but she never gave up on herself. She never stopped believing that life could be better, that someone kind might see her, and that one day she would find her place in the world. Even though her childhood was full of sorrow, it also shaped her into a strong, a resilient person who would one day face the world with courage and dignity. And so, she continued each day, carrying her dreams quietly in her heart. She worked, she studied, she endured, and she hoped. Little did she know that fate was preparing something extraordinary for her, something that would change her life forever. But for now, she remained the quiet girl in a house full of coldness, learning to survive with hope, strength, and a heart that refused to break. As the girl grew older, her life continued to be filled with challenges, but she learned to face them with quiet strength. School became both a place of escape and struggle. Her stepmother still refused to support her, often giving her old, torn clothes and making her walk to school when she could not even afford proper shoes. The other children noticed and sometimes laughed at her. They did not understand the burden she carried at home, the chores she had to finish before even thinking about studying, or the endless work that awaited her when she returned. Despite the difficulties, she tried her best to do well in school. She loved learning and believed that education could be her path to a better life. Even though her body was tired from chores and her heart heavy from emotional pain, she spent every free moment reading books borrowed from the library. Stories of courage, intelligence, and resilience inspired her. She imagined herself in those stories, becoming strong and capable despite hardships. Those quiet moments with books gave her hope and reminded her that life could be different. Work outside of school became necessary as her family struggled. Her stepmother made her take odd jobs to earn money, often forcing her to work long hours for very little pay. She cleaned houses, washed clothes, and helped in small shops. Sometimes people treated her badly, insulting her because she was poor, but she learned to ignore them. She worked diligently, hoping that her efforts would one day change her life. Each job taught her something new, whether it was how to handle difficult people, how to be patient, or how to manage on very little. Her father still tried to help, but his support was limited. He loved her, but he was caught up in his own life and problems. He tried to give her advice or a little money for school, but it was never enough to truly make a difference. The girl learned to rely on herself. She discovered an inner strength she never knew she had. She knew that if she wanted to survive and achieve something, she could not depend on anyone else. This realization was painful but powerful. It shaped her into a determined and resourceful young woman. At home, life remained harsh. Her stepmother's cruelty did not lessen. She was often sent to do the most difficult chores, sometimes being woken up in the middle of the night to finish tasks. Meals were small and often given after everyone else had eaten. The girl learned to accept her situation silently, finding ways to make the little she had stretch further. She ate quickly, worked efficiently, and slept briefly. Even though the pain and exhaustion were constant, she never stopped hoping that someday her life would improve. Friends were hard to come by. The girl was quiet and shy, and many children at school did not understand her situation. Some tried to be kind, but others mocked her. She learned to keep her distance, choosing her friends carefully. The few she trusted became her secret support, people who made her laugh and reminded her that life was not entirely cruel. Their kindness, even in small ways, gave her comfort and made the lonely moments a little easier to bear. The girl's determination to change her life grew stronger each year. She began to dream of a life where she would not be ignored, where she could be treated with respect, and where she could follow her passions. She knew it would not be easy. She had no money, little support, and many obstacles in her path. But she also knew that giving up was not an option. Each small success, each completed job, each good grade in school was a step forward. She celebrated these victories quietly, often alone, but they kept her motivated. Sometimes she felt like the world was against her. She saw other children with families who loved them, with opportunities that seemed out of reach for her. She felt envy, sadness, and frustration. But she did not let those feelings overwhelm her. Instead, she used them as fuel to work harder, to be better, and to prove that she could succeed despite everything. She believed that life's hardships were temporary, and that patience and persistence could eventually lead to happiness. One of her greatest strengths was her ability to stay kind, even when others treated her poorly. She helped people when she could, even if she received nothing in return. She learned that compassion and humility were powerful qualities, even in a harsh world. People who met her noticed her gentle nature and intelligence. Some were inspired by her resilience, even if they did not know the full story of her struggles. She learned that her actions and character mattered more than her circumstances. The girl also discovered the importance of small joys. A sunny day, a quiet moment by herself, or the laughter of children playing outside became precious to her. She learned to appreciate beauty in simple things, finding peace in moments that others might overlook. These little pleasures reminded her that life had value, even when it seemed unfair. They gave her the strength to continue, to face each day with courage, and to hold on to the hope that something better awaited her as she continued her work and studies. She began to understand the world in ways others her age did not. She saw the inequality, the unfairness, and the cruelty, but she also saw kindness, opportunity, and potential. She learned to navigate both the harsh and gentle sides of life, gaining wisdom beyond her years. She understood that survival was not just about physical strength, but also about patience, intelligence, and emotional resilience. These lessons would stay with her forever. Despite everything, the girl never lost her dreams. She imagined a future where she would be free from abuse, where she could pursue her passions, and where she could live with dignity and respect. She dreamed of traveling, learning new things, and meeting people who valued her for who she was. These dreams were like a secret garden in her heart, protected from the cold and cruelty of the world. They gave her hope, motivation, and a reason to keep going. The girl's journey was not easy. Every day was a struggle, filled with challenges that would have broken someone weaker, but she refused to let life defeat her. She faced each obstacle with courage, learned from every experience, and grew stronger as a result. Her past, filled with neglect and abuse, shaped her character and determination. She became someone who could endure hardship without losing her humanity, someone whose spirit could not be crushed. Her story in this part of life is a testament to resilience, hope, and courage. Even when ignored and mistreated, she never gave up. She learned to survive, to find strength within herself, and to hold on to her dreams. She discovered that her value was not determined by her circumstances, but by her character, her actions, and her determination. These lessons would guide her in the years to come. preparing her for challenges and opportunities that would eventually change her life forever. And so, she continued on her path, balancing school, work, and chores, all while nurturing her dreams quietly in her heart. Every day was a step forward, every challenge a test of her strength, and every small joy a reminder that life still held promise. She did not know what the future held, but she believed that her efforts and resilience would one day lead her to the life she had always imagined. For now, she remained strong, hopeful, and determined, carrying the lessons of her struggles and the dreams of a brighter future with her wherever she went by the time the girl reached her late teens. Life had become a routine of struggle, work, and study. Every day was a challenge, yet she moved through it with quiet determination. She had learned to survive, to endure, and to find small moments of happiness despite her harsh home life. But she had never expected that one ordinary day would change everything. It happened when she went to a new job at a small cafe. She had been hired to help with cleaning, serving, and organizing. It was not much, but it was honest work, and it allowed her to save a little money for herself. She worked quietly, never complaining, always doing her best. Her stepmother had forbidden her from enjoying herself, and yet she found pride in being responsible and helpful. The cafe was a new world, filled with people she had never met before. It gave her a sense of freedom she had rarely felt. One day a man came into the cafe. He was tall, dressed in a way that showed wealth, but his presence was calm and confident. He noticed the girl immediately, though she did not understand why at first. He watched as she moved around the cafe, organizing, cleaning, and serving customers with grace and care. Unlike others, he did not focus on her worn-out clothes or the simplicity of her work. Instead, he noticed her attention to detail, her patience with difficult customers, and the quiet strength in her eyes. There was something about her that stood out, something rare and valuable. The girl did not know who he was. She saw many people every day, some wealthy, some ordinary, but there was something different about this man. He was polite, respectful, and interested in her thoughts. For the first time, someone spoke to her as if she mattered, as if her ideas and feelings were important. She was cautious, of course. Life had taught her that people could be kind one moment and cruel the next. But there was an honesty in his manner that made her feel safe. They began to talk, slowly at first. He asked about her work, her studies, and her dreams. She answered carefully, not wanting to reveal too much about her private life, but still feeling a spark of connection. He listened without judgment, without making her feel small or invisible. That simple act of being seen and heard was something she had longed for all her life. It was as if a small part of her heart, buried under years of pain, began to open. The man returned to the cafe several times, always engaging with her in conversation, always noticing her efforts. He encouraged her to pursue her studies, to keep learning, and to believe in herself. She was surprised by how much his words affected her. They were not grand promises or empty flattery, but sincere encouragement that gave her courage. For the first time, she imagined that life might offer more than hardship, that she might have opportunities beyond what she had ever dreamed. Her stepmother, meanwhile, remained unaware of this connection. The girl had learned to keep parts of her life private, knowing that any jealousy or anger could bring punishment. She continued her work at home and at the cafe, careful to balance both worlds. She worked hard, yet for the first time, she felt a sense of excitement and possibility. The ordinary days, once filled only with chores and exhaustion, began to feel different. She began to hope that maybe, just maybe, life could change for her. As weeks passed, their interactions grew more meaningful. He began to understand the difficulties she faced at home, the lack of support and the abuse she endured. Yet he did not pity her. Instead, he admired her resilience, her intelligence, and her kindness. He saw in her someone who had faced unimaginable challenges and yet had not lost her humanity. It was rare, and he valued it deeply. The girl, unaware of his wealth or influence, appreciated the way he treated her as a person, not a poor girl working in a cafe. One day, an incident at the cafe tested the girl's composure. A difficult customer was rude and demanding, complaining about small mistakes and acting disrespectful. The girl stayed calm, addressing the situation with patience and professionalism. The man observed silently, impressed by her grace under pressure. After the incident, he spoke to her privately, praising her for handling the situation so well. His words were not just about the job. They were about her character, her ability to stay strong in adversity. She felt a warmth in her chest, a rare feeling of being truly seen. The girl began to trust him more, sharing small details of her life, her hopes, and her fears. She told him about her love for books, her dream of learning more, and her wish to live a life of respect and dignity. He listened intently, offering advice and encouragement. He did not try to solve her problems with money or influence. He simply gave her guidance and belief in herself. That approach made her respect him deeply. For the first time, she felt that someone believed in her, not for what she could do for them, but for who she truly was. Outside the cafe, she began to notice changes in herself. She carried herself with more confidence, spoke with more assurance, and allowed herself to dream bigger. The encouragement she received from him acted as a mirror, reflecting the strength and potential she had always possessed but had never acknowledged. She realized that her past hardships had made her resilient, capable, and thoughtful. She began to see her value, not as defined by her stepmother or circumstances, but by her own qualities. The man, meanwhile, became more aware of her struggles and character. He recognized that she had been neglected, undervalued, and mistreated. Yet he also saw the beauty of her spirit, the kindness she extended to others despite her own pain, and the determination that kept her moving forward. He realized that meeting her was not a coincidence, but something meaningful. There was a connection that went beyond the ordinary, a recognition of something rare and precious in her soul. He started introducing her to new experiences in small ways, without overwhelming her. He invited her to see parts of the city she had never visited, to meet people who treated her with respect, and to attend cultural events that sparked her curiosity. Each experience broadened her view of the world, showing her that life could be more than survival and struggle. She began to imagine a future filled with opportunities, friendships, and learning, possibilities she had never dared to dream before. At the same time, the girl remained cautious. Life had taught her to be careful, to protect herself, and to avoid trusting too easily. She appreciated his guidance and attention, but kept a part of herself guarded. She wanted to be careful, knowing that appearances could be deceiving. Yet slowly, she found herself feeling a sense of safety and warmth around him that she had never experienced before. It was comforting to know that someone truly cared without expecting anything in return. The girl's life, once defined by routine and struggle, began to shift. She continued her work and studies, but now with renewed purpose. She realized that her efforts could lead to more than mere survival. They could open doors to a better life. Her confidence grew, and she allowed herself to hope for a future that was once unimaginable. Every conversation, every kind word, every small encouragement built her courage and self-belief. And so, the ordinary girl, who had lived a life of neglect and abuse, began to see the first signs of change. She had met someone who recognized her worth, someone who inspired her to believe in herself, and someone who offered guidance without judgment. She did not yet know what the future held, but she felt the first spark of hope, a feeling she had not experienced for many years. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream that life could be better, that she could be valued, and that she could finally step into a world where she mattered. Little did she know that this chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would change her life forever. The quiet girl, once invisible and overlooked, was beginning a journey toward recognition, respect, and unexpected opportunities. Her story, once filled with hardship and struggle, was about to enter a new chapter, one where her strength, resilience, and kindness would finally be seen and appreciated by someone who truly mattered. The girl's life had started to change in ways she never imagined. What began as small conversations and subtle encouragements from the billionaire grew into a deeper connection that would test her courage, patience, and trust. She continued to work at the cafe, attend school, and complete chores at home, but her heart carried a new light. She had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who believed in her abilities, and someone who treated her with respect and care. Her stepmother, as always, remained oblivious to these developments. The girl kept the interaction secret, knowing that jealousy and anger could only make her life harder. She had learned long ago that safety meant discretion. While she navigated her difficult home life, she also began to receive small gestures of guidance from the billionaire. He suggested books to read, encouraged her to apply for small opportunities that matched her talents, and taught her to believe in herself. Each piece of advice was gentle, never forceful, and it resonated deeply with her. Life outside the cafe also began to feel different. For the first time, she realized that her past hardships did not define her future. She had endured abuse, neglect, and hardship, but she also had strength, intelligence, and a kind heart. The billionaire's recognition of these qualities made her see herself differently. She started taking small steps to improve her confidence, speaking up in class, and sharing her opinions more freely. The world suddenly seemed less intimidating, and she felt a sense of control over her life that she had never known before. One day, an opportunity arose for her to help with a project the billionaire was working on. He asked her to organize a small event, assisting with arrangements and coordination. She was nervous at first, unsure if she could handle the responsibility, but he encouraged her with words of confidence. He did not doubt her abilities, and slowly, she began to believe in herself as well. The project was a success, and she received quiet praise from those involved. That moment became a turning point, showing her that her hard work, intelligence, and attention to detail could be noticed and valued. Her stepmother's cruelty, meanwhile, escalated. She noticed the girl's growing confidence and independence and attempted to undermine her at every opportunity. She would criticize her work, demand extra chores, and make remarks meant to diminish her spirit. But the girl had grown stronger. She no longer let the harsh words break her. She learned to rise above the negativity, to focus on her own goals, and to protect her dreams from being destroyed. Each challenge at home became a test of resilience, reinforcing the strength she had quietly built over the years at the same time. The billionaire continued to support her growth without overstepping. He offered guidance, introduced her to new ideas, and encouraged her to explore her potential. They spent time discussing goals, dreams, and possibilities, and she felt a sense of partnership and respect that was entirely new to her. He never judged her past or her circumstances, and that acceptance allowed her to open up more fully. She began to see herself as someone capable, worthy, deserving of opportunity. The girl also began to notice subtle changes in her own attitude toward life. She had always been cautious, quiet, and hesitant, but the encouragement and support she received inspired her to take small risks. She spoke to new people, accepted challenges, and allowed herself to imagine a future beyond her immediate struggles. Every step she took, however small, built her confidence and expanded her vision of what was possible. As they spent more time together, the billionaire began to see not only her abilities, but also the depth of her character. He noticed her empathy, her patience, and her ability to handle difficulties with grace. Her kindness toward others, even when she herself had little, impressed him deeply. It was rare to find someone who had endured so much hardship, yet remained compassionate and humble. He realized that his admiration was not just for her skills, but for her spirit. However, the growing bond also brought challenges. The girl had to navigate feelings of uncertainty and fear. She wondered if this attention and support would last, if it could truly lead to a better life, or if it was just temporary. Trust did not come easily, and she struggled with self-doubt. The billionaire, aware of her hesitations, remained patient. He continued to show consistency, kindness, and respect, allowing her to build trust at her own pace. Slowly, she began to feel secure, knowing that someone genuinely cared about her well-being. One afternoon, the girl faced a particularly difficult day at home. Her stepmother's anger had escalated, and she had been punished for reasons she could not understand. Exhausted and hurt, she sought refuge at the cafe, the only place that felt safe. The billionaire noticed her distress immediately. Without judgment, he listened to her story and offered comfort. He reminded her of her strength and resilience, assuring her that her past did not define her future. That support gave her a sense of relief she had never known. For the first time, she felt that someone truly understood her pain and cared about her happiness. Through these experiences, the girl learned to balance her life. She continued to fulfill her responsibilities at home and work, but she also allowed herself moments of growth, learning, and self-discovery. She began to dream again, imagining a future filled with possibilities she had never dared to consider. Education, opportunity, and respect were no longer distant concepts, but achievable goals. Supported by the guidance and encouragement she now received as their relationship developed. The billionaire also began to take steps to help her beyond guidance. He provided small opportunities that allowed her to gain experience, learn new skills, and expand her horizons. These opportunities were never given out of pity. They were offered because he recognized her talent and potential. Each success, however small, reinforced her self-esteem and helped her realize that she could achieve more than she had ever imagined. The girl's world was slowly transforming. The quiet, obedient girl who had once lived in fear and neglect was becoming confident, capable, and self-assured. She was learning that her past did not limit her future and that her worth was defined, not by her circumstances, but by her character and efforts. The encouragement and guidance she received were changing her perspective, helping her see herself as someone deserving of respect, opportunity, and happiness. By the end of this period, the girl had undergone a remarkable transformation. She remained humble and kind, yet she carried herself with a newfound confidence. She could handle challenges with grace, pursue her dreams with determination, and trust in her abilities. The billionaire's influence had been subtle but powerful, allowing her to grow at her own pace and build the foundation for a life beyond struggle. She was no longer just surviving. She was beginning to thrive. This chapter of her life was a turning point. The hardships she had endured had shaped her resilience and character, while the guidance and support she now received opened doors to opportunity, learning, and self-discovery. She had begun to step into a world where her efforts, talents, and kindness could be recognized and valued. And though the future still held challenges, she faced them with courage, hope, and a quiet confidence that had been nurtured by her journey and by someone who truly believed in her potential. The girl had come a long way from the shy, quiet child who once endured abuse and neglect at home. Through years of hardship, work, and study, she had grown resilient, determined, and compassionate. And now, the guidance, support, and belief she had received from the billionaire had transformed her life in ways she never imagined. The person who once felt invisible and powerless was now beginning to step into a life filled with respect, opportunity, and hope. Her daily routine was still demanding. She continued to manage work, studies, and responsibilities at home. But the difference now was that she did so with confidence, a sense of purpose, and belief in her own capabilities. Every task, whether small or large, was approached with focus and determination. She had learned to balance her duties with moments of growth and self-care, understanding that her well-being and potential mattered just as much as any chore or obligation. The billionaire continued to be a source of encouragement and support. He recognized her strengths, celebrated her achievements, and guided her through challenges. She began to realize that his interest in her went beyond simple kindness or mentorship. He valued her for who she was, her intelligence, her resilience, her empathy, and her unwavering determination. It was a level of recognition she had never experienced before, and it empowered her to see her own worth. As time passed, she began to take bold steps toward independence. She applied for scholarships, sought opportunities to expand her skills, and pursued projects that challenged her in new ways. Every success reinforced her self-esteem and confidence. She discovered talents she never knew she had and realized that her past hardships had given her a unique perspective and strength that others admired. Her life, once defined by neglect, was now shaped by her choices, efforts, and growing self-belief. Her stepmother's influence began to wane. The girl no longer allowed cruelty or criticism to define her sense of self. She set boundaries, remained firm, and did not let harsh words or jealousy sway her determination. The power her stepmother once held over her diminished as the girl's confidence and independence grew. She realized that her value was not determined by anyone else, and that understanding gave her a sense of freedom. She had longed for all her life. The connection with the billionaire deepened, built on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine care. He continued to provide guidance and opportunities. But he also treated her as an equal, someone whose opinions and feelings mattered. They spent time discussing plans, exploring ideas, and imagining a future full of possibilities. His unwavering belief in her potential gave her courage to dream bigger and aim higher than she ever had before. One turning point came when the girl was invited to attend a professional event with him, where she could meet accomplished people and showcase her talents. She felt nervous, unsure if she belonged in such a space, but he reassured her with confidence and gentle encouragement. At the event, she impressed everyone with her intelligence, poise, and insight. She realized that her hard work and resilience had prepared her for this moment, and she could finally see that her life was capable of transformation. The experience boosted her self-belief and reinforced that she had the power to create her own future. Back at home, the girl continued to manage challenges, but the difference was in how she handled them. Her stepmother's attempts to dominate or belittle her no longer had the same effect. The girl stood firm, calmly managing conflicts and asserting herself when necessary. She had learned that true strength was not about aggression, but about self-respect, patience, and determination. Each small victory over fear and oppression strengthened her resolve and allowed her to envision a life free from abuse. Gradually, her achievements became visible to those around her. Teachers, colleagues, and mentors recognized her abilities, resilience, and character. She was no longer the quiet, overlooked girl. She had earned respect through her dedication and talent. Each acknowledgement built her confidence and helped her see that she could rise above her past. The girl began to imagine a life filled with opportunities, friendships, and recognition that had once seemed impossible. Her relationship with the billionaire evolved naturally as trust and mutual admiration grew. He respected her independence and achievements while offering guidance and support when needed. She began to see him not just as a mentor, but as someone who genuinely valued and cared for her. Their bond was based on shared understanding, respect, and recognition of each other's strengths. For the first time, she felt truly seen and appreciated in a way that went beyond simple kindness or attention. With his guidance and support, she took steps toward financial independence and personal growth. She managed savings, explored educational opportunities, and pursued interests that had been out of reach. Every success reinforced her belief in herself and showed her that her future was no longer determined by the hardships she had faced, but by her own efforts and choices. She realized that she was capable of shaping a life filled with dignity, happiness, and purpose. The girl's transformation was not only external, but deeply internal. She had gained confidence, resilience, and self-respect. She could now face challenges with calm determination, make decisions based on her values, and navigate relationships with strength and grace. Her journey from neglect to empowerment had taught her that adversity could build character, and that belief in oneself was the key to overcoming even the harshest obstacles. Eventually, the billionaire made it clear that his admiration and care for her went beyond mentorship. He wanted her to have a life of opportunity, respect, and happiness, and he made a commitment to support her in meaningful ways. This decision was not based on pity, but on genuine recognition of her worth, character, and strength. It was a choice that validated all the resilience, determination, and kindness she had cultivated throughout her life. The girl, once invisible and overlooked, had finally reached a point where her efforts, talents, and spirit were recognized and valued. She had endured years of neglect and abuse, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever before. The hardships of her past had shaped her resilience, but the opportunities and guidance she now received allowed her to envision and build a future. Full of possibility, her life had transformed completely. The fear, loneliness, and pain that once defined her existence had been replaced with hope, confidence, and a sense of belonging. She was no longer just surviving. She was thriving. Every challenge she faced, every small victory, and every act of courage had prepared her for this moment. The girl who had once been ignored and abused now stood as a symbol of resilience, determination, and the power of believing in oneself as she looked back on her journey. She realized that her hardships had not broken her. They had strengthened her. She had learned to survive, to dream, and to fight for her own happiness. And now, with the support of someone who truly valued her, she was ready to embrace a life filled with opportunity, respect, and love. Her story was no longer one of pain and neglect. It was a story of triumph, empowerment, and the remarkable transformation of a girl who was finally chosen, seen, and appreciated for who she truly was. After the girl's life had begun to change with guidance, support, and recognition, she found herself facing a new set of challenges and opportunities. Although her hardships had prepared her for struggle, the sudden transformation of her life brought feelings she had never experienced before: excitement, uncertainty, hope, and even fear. She realized that embracing change required courage, not just survival skills. Her days were now filled with new responsibilities, learning experiences, and situations that tested her growth in unexpected ways. The first challenge was learning to navigate the attention and opportunities she now received. People treated her differently, noticing her talents, intelligence, and poise. At first, this attention felt overwhelming. She had been invisible for so long that suddenly being seen and valued was almost frightening. She doubted whether she deserved the praise and opportunities. Yet, through gentle encouragement and consistent guidance, she began to understand that recognition was a result of her own hard work, determination, and character. She learned to accept acknowledgement gracefully, realizing that she could embrace success without guilt or fear. Work and learning became intertwined with new opportunities that the billionaire helped create. He introduced her to professionals, mentors, and networks that opened doors she had never imagined. Each experience tested her skills, patience, and adaptability. Sometimes she made mistakes, and sometimes situations were challenging or uncomfortable. But each challenge became a lesson, teaching her resilience, humility, and problem-solving skills. Slowly, she grew more confident in her abilities. Realizing that growth often comes from stepping outside one's comfort zone, her home life continued to be difficult at times. Her stepmother still tried to assert control and belittle her, but the girl no longer allowed herself to be intimidated. She approached these encounters with calm confidence and strategic thinking. Understanding that her past had prepared her for these challenges, instead of responding with fear or anger, she used patience, intelligence, and self-respect to manage conflicts. Each small victory strengthened her sense of empowerment and independence. Beyond work and home, she began exploring personal growth in ways she had never considered before. She developed hobbies, pursued educational goals, and participated in cultural and community activities. Each new experience expanded her perspective and built her self-esteem. She began to understand that life offered endless possibilities, and that she had the ability to shape her future. These experiences also allowed her to connect with people who valued her for her abilities, character, and spirit rather than her past circumstances. Her connection with the billionaire also evolved. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. He continued to guide her, not with control or pressure, but with gentle encouragement and belief in her potential. They discussed ideas, challenges, and ambitions. And she began to understand the importance of mentorship and support in personal growth. Through this relationship, she learned that success was not just about talent or effort, but also about guidance, collaboration, and believing in oneself. There were moments of doubt and fear. She sometimes worried whether she could meet the expectations placed on her, whether she could navigate complex situations, and whether her achievements were sustainable. These fears were natural, but she learned to confront them with courage. She reminded herself of all she had endured and achieved, realizing that the girl who had survived neglect and abuse could handle new challenges with wisdom and strength. Each step forward became a proof of her resilience and capability. Opportunities for leadership and initiative began to appear. The girl was asked to lead small projects, mentor others, and participate in decision-making processes. Each responsibility required her to use skills she had learned through years of struggle organization, patience, empathy, and problem-solving. She embraced these roles, gaining confidence and demonstrating that her past hardships had shaped her into a capable, thoughtful, and strong individual. Others began to recognize her potential and character. Reinforcing the transformation she had undergone, she also learned the value of giving back. Having experienced hardship, she empathized with those in need and sought ways to help them. She volunteered in small ways, guided others who faced challenges, and offered support where she could. This sense of purpose gave her life deeper meaning, connecting her experiences to a broader vision of kindness, resilience, and empowerment. She realized that her journey was not just about personal success, but also about helping others navigate their own struggles. Over time, the girl became a symbol of resilience and transformation in her community. People admired her strength, intelligence, and kindness. She was no longer seen as the quiet, invisible girl of the past, but as someone capable, confident, and inspiring. She understood that her past hardships had shaped her character, but her actions, choices, and growth were what defined her present and future. This realization empowered her to pursue her dreams without fear, hesitation, or doubt. The billionaire remained a constant source of guidance and support. Respecting her independence and celebrating her achievements, he valued her for her character, resilience, and intelligence. Their relationship was marked by mutual admiration, trust, and understanding. He encouraged her to continue growing, exploring, and achieving, while allowing her to take ownership of her life and decisions. This balance of support and independence allowed her to thrive in every area of her life. Her personal confidence and self-awareness continued to expand. She approached challenges with a sense of calm, strategy, and resilience. She learned to navigate social, professional, and personal situations with wisdom and composure. Each experience reinforced the understanding that her value was inherent and not defined by the opinions or actions of others. She had learned to trust herself, embrace her strengths, and pursue her goals with determination. Eventually, she reached a point where her life was no longer defined by survival or fear. She had built a future that reflected her abilities, dreams, and values. Her past had shaped her, but it did not limit her. She had grown into a confident, independent, empowered individual who could face life's challenges with grace and courage. Every success, every small act of kindness, every lesson learned became part of the foundation of the life she was creating. The final stage of her journey was the full realization of her potential. She achieved educational goals, gained professional experience, and became a respected member of her community. She continued to mentor others, giving back in meaningful ways, and inspiring those who faced challenges similar to her own. Her transformation was a testament to resilience, determination, and the power of guidance, opportunity, and belief in oneself. Looking back, the girl realized that every hardship, challenge, and struggle had prepared her for this life. She had learned patience, perseverance, empathy, and the value of self-belief. Her connection with the billionaire had provided guidance and support, but it was her own strength, character, and determination that allowed her to thrive. She had moved from invisibility and neglect to recognition, empowerment, and influence, creating a life that reflected her true potential. Her story concluded not just with personal success, but with the fulfillment of her dreams, the development of her character, and the empowerment to help others. She had transformed from a girl ignored and abused into a confident, capable, and inspiring individual. Every step of her journey had contributed to this transformation, making her story one of resilience, hope, and the remarkable power of believing in oneself.